Now then, so today we have another six factions, six decks because we have a new patch, and I don't want to call it too soon, but I'm pretty happy with it in general. It kind of feels like what the patch should have been after the new expansion because Renfrey is a very good card. She's still very playable, but isn't abusive. I think is probably the best way to put it. She's definitely still playable. I don't think she's in the dirt by any means, but it's not an auto-include card anymore, which is really, really nice. And so that kind of means that some of the newer cards that came out that were overshadowed by Renfrey, we can maybe have a bit of a look at so some of the scenarios and things like that. So if you've never watched one of my six factions, six decks, or any of my videos in general, the sort of thing that I do here is I detail a deck for each faction that I'm sort of looking to play this season. And this is by no means like a meta snapshot. I'm not saying these are the best decks for each faction, but these are kind of things that I'm going to look at. So these are the kind of things that probably over the next week or two, there'll probably be a video on. And it really just exists to give people ideas when the new season starts, because it can be a little daunting when you see pages upon pages of deck changes and go in and none of your decks are playable. Just being able to have a bit of a resource to go into is sometimes a good thing. So yeah, we've got plenty of decks to cover, so we'll go right into them. For monsters, I really want to try out my White Frost deck that I put together. I didn't play it too much last couple of seasons, but it's something that I kind of want to come back to because I think there's something a little untapped with monsters that could maybe get some work done. So it's pretty generic in terms of what it's doing, jamming all the Wild Hunt cards down, that kind of thing. But we also have things like Unseen Elder, because Unseen Elder just as a unit is already very, very good. You know, it's like 12 points on deploy with all of the bleeding, and you don't really need the vampire synergies for it to be a good card. So, for example, you can put Fleder into any old deck because it needs that bleeding synergy, whereas Unseen Elder is just points that are pretty good, to be honest. In terms of other decks I'll play, I'll probably have a look at vampires and stuff, but I really do like Wild Hunt because you can get a surprising amount of pressure down in round one. It's pretty hard in round one to fight them off because 2 points a turn from Frost really isn't nothing to sniff at, and you can get that set up on both rows. If your opponent tries to stack, you can just use one leader, chuck it onto the range row on a pretty big target, so you still get that value. The 4 points a turn on top of some pretty strong bronzes in the form of like Naglfar Crew and things like that means that you have a lot of pressure, and then a lot of your golds are not so much even circumstantial. They obviously have potential for big points, but they always play for like solid amounts. So like Oberon, Eredin, and as I said, the Unseen Elder obviously are going to get more value in like a long round. Say Eredin when there's lots of frost down, Oberon when you play a lot of Wild Hunt cards, so they can get that boost. And obviously Unseen Elder, longer it goes on, the more bleeding. But in a short round, they still have tons of impact. So it's a really sort of flexible game plan. You can kind of tailor it to the matchup. And I was finding quite a bit of success a couple of seasons ago with it, but we'll see how it's looking right now after all of the changes. For Nilfgaard, we are going for mixed things. We're going for soldiers primarily. I thought I'd try something a little different. I haven't played soldiers in quite a while, and it seemed to be kind of lacking like a coherent kind of plan for the end. Obviously things like Ramon and being able to double up your deploys and all that kind of stuff is very nice. But I don't know, it was missing something. So I went with good old Kahir and Yen combo. So if you've not kind of played this one before, Yen, when you play her on the range row, boosts every unit on the board by 2, and Kahir boosts himself every time an opponent unit is boosted. So basically, you can play Kahir and play Yen at the end. All of your units get boosted by 2. All of your opponent's units get boosted by 2. But also, let's say you boost 10 units on their side, so they gain 20 points. Here boosts himself by 20 points, so it kind of cancels that out in effect, which is very, very nice. You could go very, very memey with this and throw in a Lether Kingslayer, make 2 Kahirs. I've not done this here. I think it's a bit ambitious, but that is definitely an option if you're feeling a bit clowny. In terms of the other stuff going on, we also have an Ivar in there because we are running Imperial Knights and Tortoises. So you can basically make their tallest unit very tall and then just either swap it. You get all those points back. So all the Imperial Knights may be like playing for 6, what it appears. You know, you play an 8, boost their unit by 2, and it's like 6 for 5. That's not very good. You actually end up stealing those points back, so it plays for 10 points. That kind of makes sense, which is very, very good. Not to mention, tortoises also act as a very nice bait. You know, your opponent sees it as 3 points for breaking 2 armor. That's pretty good. They do that, you get those 3 points, so they actually lose 5 in that interaction. So yeah, I've always been a kind of big fan of Ivar and that little combo because it puts your opponent in kind of an awkward situation. What do? They make a unit too tall, you just get the points. If they do, you outpoint them. So it's a very fun deck, and I managed to play like just 1 game before this, and it went well. So yeah, we will see how this goes. In terms of this deck, like the actual list, it's not like actually perfect. I would definitely look at this and try it yourself if you fancy playing it. Try it, and if you see anything you think should be changed, by all means make the changes, and also let me know because I'm trying to improve the deck as I go. It's quite perfect yet. Now for Northern Realms, I'm gonna try out Knights. Another one that I kind of never played too much last season, mainly because I both didn't play a lot and I just didn't play much Northern Realms. In terms of the best way to go with Knights, I'm really not sure. I've tried a few things, and so for this one, I'm going Diversion, as I kind of have before, because I think Bellahoon is very, very good in the list. You're obviously running it a bit more risky because that means you get Aeromancy to guarantee you get that damsel in distress scenario. But I'm happy to take that risk for the benefit that Bellahoon kind of offers. With the change to Knighthood, so if you didn't see that, now it's a 10 provision card that lets you play any knight from your deck and boost it by however many you have. So now we have a consistent way to get Antaeus, for example. Antaeus previously was the one very risky card because you couldn't play with Amphibious Assault. So it was always kind of risky and miss that card, which would be pretty annoying. Obviously, the bonuses, because it gets boosted by how many knights you have. Let's say you even have 3 knights on the board, then he comes down as a 7 in duel. So very, very good. Very, very good. So that's kind of the angle we're going. If you've never played knights before, it's a very sort of simple strategy. It's not a difficult deck to play by any means. You have a lot of cards that are going to boost very tall, and once you get Damsel in Distress down, arguably a card I think will probably get nerfed going into next season because it's a very, very strong scenario. But then you play your knights. Every time you play your knight, it advances the scenario, and the way it sort of operates is every time Grace is triggered, the adjacent units get boosted by 2, and this can end up in a lot of chain reactions where the adjacents are boosted by 2, which triggers their Grace, so it boosts the adjacents by 2, which triggers their Grace, and so on, so on, so on. So you end up with a very, very tall board. You're obviously a little scared of Erden, but that's just the price you pay, I guess. And honestly, this is kind of a is very consistent kind of deck. It doesn't matter if you're a card down, if you have scenario and you can get like shield and like Bronwyn going, then you're kind of good. And in terms of sort of consistency, AA and Knighthood should be enough, but obviously running that risk on Damsel in Distress, but it's live on the wild side, Sometimes we miss it. That's okay with me. For Scoia'tael, we're going to have a look at Harmony. There was a couple of Harmony changes, a couple of buffs. Particularly one of the most interesting ones was Wandering Treant. It used to be if you played it on the melee row, it just got a shield, and that was kind of bad. Um, if you were running poisons, then you were 99% of the time just using it as a poison. Um, but because poison in Skytell's not that great, you don't really need it, and it's not that good. Um, the change now is it has the order. When you play it on the melee row, it can still do the poison if you want, but if you play it on the melee row, boosts itself for every unique Scoia'tael tag. So it's kind of like a reverse harmony. You play it after you've played all of your harmony stuff, your different tags, and then it gets the boost. So it works pretty nicely with what harmony's trying to do. Because it's a harmony card itself, it means that you don't have to get it down straight away. You can delay it if you want and use it as a point slam. And the harmony was kind of one of the decks that I managed to have a chance to play before I've done this video, and it seems to do pretty well. I was really enjoying it, and get the dusk aspect up pretty big, to be honest. With all of the sort of carryover, especially with Chameleon and things like that, I would say it's like a low roll if you get it to 15, 16. I've had games where it's got up to like 25. You can really have a massive finisher there. So what I've typically been doing is looking to, play bronze harmony stuff, try and, play unique kind of stuff, maybe get a chameleon down, start ticking that through, and then in round two go for a really hard push, and you either 2-0 or you go into a very short round where you have a 25 point slam, which is pretty big. Another thing to mention is the Etriel and Morelga in there. I've kind of been trying them out. I think they're decent. I don't think they're incredible, but I definitely think they're decent. One of them plays for 7, the other plays for and play for 11 or 13, depending on which one. One deals 3 to 3 adjacents, one deals 7, so you can kind of tailor it. If you want to remove bodies, you can play the Etriel first, so you get the 3 damage on 3. If there's a big target you need to remove, play the Morelga first, you've got a 7 damage piece of removal. And they've been doing good, not to mention, the Elves and the Beast. Not that common in the list, so you're going to get harmony tags off of them. And not to mention they have the Bandit tag now as well, so with Convergence, they get a nice little extra buff. That is also something else to mention. They've added a ton of secondary buffs to cards. Secondary categories, rather. So a lot of things have got Bandit, a lot of things have got Warrior, that kind of thing. So Convergence is just better now. Cards that before would just say a Dryad, like Morin, for example, used to just be a Dryad. Now she's a Dryad and a Warrior. So Convergence will boost her by 2 rather than 1. So that was kind of one of the stealth buffs, I guess. But yeah, it's a pretty fun deck, and I will definitely be playing a bit more Harmony, probably today. Now, you may find my Skellige option a little boring, but it's what I feel like playing. So it's a Pirates list. Now, obviously, Renfrey, you could still go Renfrey. I don't think Pirates with Renfrey will be bad by any means. They'll be very good. But I didn't play as much Pirates as I would have liked last season. Not with the scenario anyway. I want to mess about with the scenario a little more. And I think there's like several ways you could go with this. You could go for a very like thin, heavy kind of way, put in Roach and Knickers and run like Sunset Wanderers and Compass. But I've decided to go for that more unit heavy kind of side with Bran and the Warriors and things like that. And yeah, we'll see how it gets on. Because we don't have Compass, Fukushi's in there, so that's a very expensive card, but he's good. That's all there is. All there is to it. Fukushi's a very good card. The general idea with this deck is you just want to destroy every single thing your opponent puts down, quite simply. Now, in terms of how you do that, you have, if you can get Kraken Crate down and he's not dealt with, it's over, quite simply. Your opponent plays a unit, you play like 7 power pirate with like 5 armor, you still there, you get the back to square one. And you do that for the entire round and you win very comfortably. Now, Fukusha allows you to do that in 2 rounds. Little risky going crack on creative round 1 because Squirrel exists, Javier exists. You could lose it for round 3 where you really need it. So it's all about assessing the matchup, deciding how important it is that you really put that pressure on. Now, in terms of consistency, we're running a bit risky with the discard package. Discard package is discard package. You can get very unlucky on the cards you see and that kind of thing. It's always a bit of a gamble, but it is a huge amount of points, absolutely huge amount of points from the discard package. It's one of the few ways to have consistency in your deck while still getting points. So, kind of can't say no to it, really, can you? It's very, very good. Very, very good. So we will see how it gets on in a post-broken Renfrey world. Now for Syndicate, I think arguably I've saved the best for last. So this is a very, very clowny kind of meme list that I put together a couple of seasons ago now. And I didn't play it nearly as much as it deserves. So if you've watched my content before, you will know that I absolutely love Collusion. And I won't go over exactly how Collusion works. It's a bit of a paragraph to read. But the long and short of it is if you have all 5 gang categories down, it plays for about 25 points, which is very, very good. We also have Alyssa and Arcane Term, so we can play Alyssa and Arcane Term to Collusion twice in a round. And, on top of that, we got Redea and Shoop, so even if we don't do shuffling back the Collusion, we can shuffle back Shoop, stay off with Alyssa and Arcane Term to do double Shoop, which either way is pretty good. So the idea of how you kind of get the value here from Collusion is because we're running it in Pirate's Curve, get a Tide Clerks from our leader, nice and easy. We have Fairco to kind of tutor it out from the deck, the Crown Splitter, so there's 2 gang categories right there the turn you want to play it. So before you do that, you want to get a Cut Ups, a Blind Eyes, and Fire Swan down. Once you've got those 3 down, you have your full Collusion. Now, obviously, this isn't always going to pay off. You're not always going to be able to consistently get all 5 categories, but even 3 categories is pretty good. 4 is very good. Obviously, 5 is perfect. And Fire Swan's pretty easy to stick, with Eternal Fire Disciple. You're going to kind of end up, and obviously Cyrus, you're going to end up with a lot of the Zealots, so they're pretty easy to get down. It's just the other 2 that can get awkward, but you just kind of accept that and see what you can get done. And it's a very fun deck in terms of how strong it is. You will definitely catch people by surprise and get some very surprise wins. Especially some 2-0s are not off the table by any means. So it's a very interesting deck, and I absolutely love it, to be honest. And that will wrap it up for the decks. So if you do try out any of these and think any of the cards I'm running kind of stupid, please put a comment below, because obviously all of these I want to improve myself. So yeah, if there's any suggestions, I am very, very open to it. Just go enjoy the season and let me know how you get on. So appreciate you watching, and I will catch you in the next one.